Hey guys, this is CK at CK Education, and today I want to talk about briefly, not too long, about my story about why I left corporate America and why I became an entrepreneur. And it's a little bit of a deeper reason than people think, but I don't want to go into all the nitty-gritty details because it might bore you. But let me just sort of tell you why my philosophy regarding this, okay? And I just want to say up front that when I think of an idea for recording these videos, some people think like I have all these notes and I wrote down all these notes and I did all this prep. I don't. It's really impromptu. It's just these are just all thoughts in my head, and I'm just spewing it out to you as we go in real time. It's not rehearsed and it's not practiced, and so and sometimes it's the viewer thinks, man, maybe you should have practiced a little bit. And sometimes I think that too, but I don't like to do it that way. I just like to do it fresh and whatever's in my mind because these are thoughts that I've had for a long time, and these are not things that I just make up on the go. So hopefully it comes out in a fairly well articulated manner. But if it doesn't, I hope you forgive me and just sort of understand that I just, I just do this with what's already in my head. Um, when I graduated college in 1995, I was living in Seattle. I went to the University of Washington, which, um, in hindsight, is the best university in America. This is my, of course, biased opinion. I just love that university, the campus, the city. It's just wonderful. Now I live in Maryland now, and I moved here in 2001. But when when you're in the middle of something, you don't appreciate it as much as after time goes by. And the University of Washington is one of those places, man. It's just if you ever get a chance to go to Seattle, I would highly encourage that you visit. Everybody goes to the Space Needle and Mount Rainier and the Pike Place, Fish Market, and all these tourist areas. But one of the areas I always tell people to go to if they go to Seattle is to go visit the University of Washington campus because that in and of itself is just a great spot. And if you go to all the nooks and crannies of that campus, it's a wonderful, beautiful campus, especially if you go when the sun's out. It's incredible. So anyway, so that being said, I graduated from that wonderful school in 1995 with a bachelor's of science in industrial engineering, and I didn't have a clue. When I say I didn't have a clue, I didn't have a clue. I mean, I feel like I barely graduated college, and I was sort of surprised that I graduated. My first 2 years were such a disaster. I struggled so much, and then the last 2 years I sort of got my footing. But it was because my first 2 years were so disastrous. By the time I graduated, I really felt like I didn't know anything. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know. I had no confidence in becoming an engineer, and that's why I didn't even go into engineering. I went into sales and management, and so. Those of you who know my story know, and I didn't go into engineering at all. I was intimidated by it, and I was intimidated by my classmates who graduated with me, and I thought, man, all those guys are going to all get jobs, and they're all going to do well, but me, man, I can't even compete with them. So I'm going to go and do sales and management in a completely different direction. So I went into sales and management. So I did that for a couple of years, and I actually really enjoyed it. Again, in hindsight, it was one of the most important skills that I ever learned in my career. And I'm going to make other videos about sales and why it's so important. But anyway, so I got back into engineering, and I worked for an engineer. I worked as an engineer for the Boeing company, for Genie Industries, um, and then I moved here into the DC metro area, and I was a senior industrial engineer for the DC government, and then I worked for a federal agency, and I was doing some consulting work as well for different organizations, and so I did a lot of different things, and I did recruiting at one point, and so it was I have a pretty varied career background. I did a lot of different things for different organizations, and I you know worked on the West Coast, East Coast, very very huge global companies, very smaller companies, federal agencies, city agencies. All that to say, I did my share of work in corporate America, and I experienced what it was like And uh, it got to a point where it wasn't that I hated working. I love working. I mean, to this day, I love working. I always tell people I'll never retire. I mean, I'm like, why would I retire? I'll just keep working. I mean, but it's not working for the sake of work. I love what I do, and I think that so I'll just keep doing it. But I left corporate America when there was, I guess, two main motivations. One was in 2007, my first son was born, and so when that happened, I just felt like uh, I just want to spend more time with my kid, and then eventually my two kids, and I, that was very important to me that I spend time with them, and so that was one big motivation. Secondly, I got to a point where I sort of got tired of working for people. Anyone who's worked in corporate America understands that no matter how hard you work and no matter how good of a job you do, you pretty much get paid the same. Now, of course, you have annual reviews and your performance bonuses and things like that. Okay, but it's not like your salary doubles. Okay, it's not like your salary you can sort of dictate if you were making 100,000 one year. Next year, I want to make 150. I mean, your salary may go up 8%. It might go up 10%, maybe even 20%. It's not going up 100%. It's not going up 50%. Okay, and even if it does one year, it's not going to do that every year. The other problem about corporate America that I just didn't like, and probably a lot of people don't like, is that the taxes are way too high. The more money you make, the more, as a percentage, the more tax that you have to pay. And so it's just, I got tired of that. And when you look at your paycheck, you're like, dude, how much taxes are they taking out, right? The other thing was that I always felt like, because I don't know if all people feel like this, but I certainly did. I felt like I was always being babysat. I don't need anybody to babysit me. So it's like, you go in the morning, you work, and if you're going into the office, and I understand a lot of people, especially the younger generation now, you guys in your 20, you guys are 25, 26, or just graduating from college. And I understand a lot of jobs, you can work from home and you don't even have to go into an office, but still a lot of people do. But even if you don't have to go into an office, there are set times where you have to do certain things. And I just didn't like doing that for somebody. I mean, after many years of doing it. So, I'm commuting to work. Maybe I'm a little bit late. So I'm calling in, hey, boss, I'm on my way, but I'm going to be, 30 minutes late because I'm stuck in traffic or there was an accident or something, and whatever, right? And if you want to leave a little bit early, you got all your work done, you got in earlier, but you want to leave a little bit early, that's okay. But you just want to make sure it's okay. So you want to talk to your boss. And, it's all this thing. It's just, and I had wonderful bosses. Don't get me wrong. I had wonderful bosses throughout my career. So I'm not complaining about my bosses. This is not that kind of thing. I absolutely had wonderful bosses. I had the best bosses you could have. But still, I still felt like, I was being babysat. I just didn't like working for other people. I had ideas. I had things that I thought I could do. I wanted to do, but it was limited in the environment that I was in. And so I decided in 2007, I'm going to leave it. And in the words of one of my colleagues, when I left the federal government, he says, well, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. I'm not sure yet. I have some ideas, but I'll figure it out. And he says, I don't know how you could just go out like that. Just leave. Because he said, if I left this, I just wouldn't know what to do. And I empathize with that statement. And I said, yeah, I mean, I understand. But my desire to be free, my desire to be free of the corporate world was greater than my fear of the unknown. And when people say, well, I can't go, and I've had a lot of people say this to me over the years, friends and colleagues who've said, man, I love to go out. I love to just quit corporate America. I just love to do my own thing too. But I just don't know how to do that. I don't know how to make the income gap work, or I don't know how it's scary, or what if it doesn't work? All these fears, and I always say to them, do you not think that I had the same fears? I had the same fears too. But my desire to free myself of corporate America was much greater than my fear of the unknown. And once you just leave it and you can't go back anymore, you force yourself into a situation in which you have to figure it out. And it's just like when you left the shore, you're like, I can't see the shoreline anymore. I have to make it to the other side now. There's no choice. Okay. There's absolutely no choice. Now, some people may look at that and say, man, that was reckless. How could you do that? You had a kid. I mean, how can you do that? I could not do otherwise. And that was the only thing I could do. And that I had to do it. I think that in life, when you get into a situation, when you get into the situations where you feel like you absolutely must do something, and that just doesn't leave you. You feel that inside, it just doesn't leave you. You have to do it. I think you have to do it. And so I went out and I sort of wandered for a couple of years, doing a lot of different things because I had to make ends meet. You'd be surprised at how fast money goes out when you stop working. But it wasn't that I stopped working; it was that I stopped working the job that provided the most money in that period of time in my life. And so anyway, I did that, and I was doing a lot of different things. But I had to settle down on one thing. I couldn't really keep doing 4 or 5 different things. So I put aside the things that I was, all these different things, and I settled on one thing. And interestingly enough, it was a thing that was making me the least amount of money at the time. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Looking back, when in hindsight, uh, I I just I guess I felt like I could make it work, even though at the time in the moment it wasn't making me the most money. It was making me the least amount of money. It was something that I absolutely loved, and it was something that I thought I could do for a very long time, and it was something that I thought that I could make it grow. I can make it grow, and I can make it work, and I can make it a high income occupation. And so I settled on teaching. Now, when I say teaching, for those of you who know me, I'm not a public school teacher. I'm a private tutor, and so I started doing that, and I started going to people's homes and teaching, and I guess the word spread and my reputation grew, and I worked very hard to develop a solid reputation and to make sure that what I did got good results and so on and so forth. And so anyway, 13 years later, here I am. I'm still doing this, and the income's just fine. Okay, and there's no money issues here because I made it grow, and I'm gonna make another video about how I was able to do that because um, it wasn't because I'm a really smart guy, and it's not because I work harder than other people. Certainly, I work hard. I think I do, but I don't think I know a lot of people who work just as hard or harder. There are plenty of people who are smarter than I am. But in a lot of things that I learned in my life, like a lot of other things, there was one person who was instrumental in my success. I feel, other than God, of course, God from whom all blessings flow. I always he gets the credit for all things because he gives me life, and um, you know, and my faith in him is real. But apart from that, just my what I learned about my how to do business and how to be a successful entrepreneur. There was one guy who was absolutely instrumental in that, and really uh, gave me the philosophical structure that I needed to conduct my business in a successful way. And I'll share that in the next video. But for now, just want to share with you why I left corporate America. And it's not just corporate America, it's institutions in general, um, that I've, over time in my life, I see that religious institutions, corporate institutions, the education institution, public school system, and so forth. And there are other institutions, but those are the big three um, that I think trap people into crowd mentality or herd mentality, crowd think. And I'm not saying everybody who belongs to an institution thinks like that. I'm just saying a lot of people do. And some people think they don't, but they do. They don't know how to think outside of the institutional framework. And so it traps them. And I say traps them because they really feel like because of the institutional pressure, they can't think otherwise, they can't do otherwise, they can't say otherwise. This to me is a big problem. And so I have made it a goal, one of the goals in my life, to be free of all institutions, if at all possible. And so I don't belong to any religious institution. If people say, what church you go to? What religion are you? I say no. Okay. Oh, so you don't believe in God? No, I do. I absolutely do. I love him. With all my heart, I do. But I don't belong to any religious institution. Okay. People say, well, what political party are you? And I say, no. Oh, so you're apolitical? No, I'm very interested in politics. Not as a I don't want to be a politician, but I mean, I follow it, and I have a keen interest in it, and I read about it all the time, and I understand politics. But if you try to, corner me into, are you a Democrat or Republican? Maybe you're a Libertarian. Maybe you're no, I'm not. I'm a registered independent, but I don't consider myself belonging to any particular political party. If people say, corporate institution, of course, I worked in corporate institutions for a long time, but I don't belong to any of them. I don't work for any of them. I work for myself. Schools, my kids are not in the public school system. And you may say, oh, they go to private school. Yeah, but not what most people think. So, like a lot of people know, who know me, my kids are enrolled in a private online school. And so, but again, my goal is to free myself, free ourselves of these binds, these confinements to institutions. I don't think institutions are evil. I don't think they're deliberately deceptive or innately evil or anything like that. I just think that by their nature, they promote herd mentality. And it's not really their fault. It's just the way it is. I mean, this is why I teach all my students one-on-one. It's the only way you can really do it in a customized way. If I'm teaching a group of 30 kids or 20 kids, I have to do it in a very institutionalized manner. If you do it like that, you have to do it so that you treat basically everybody the same, and everybody has to kind of go along. If you're the low kid, the underperforming kid, or you're the highest performing kid, and you're sort of the outliers, you have no choice but to sort of still blend in with and follow the 80% crowd, because that's how a group works. And so you can't, if you're teaching 20 kids, you can't just focus on the best kid or the worst performing kid. You have to take the whole class with you, regardless of whether everybody is following along or not, or some kids are just bored to death because this is so easy for them. You still have to sort of take the whole group along at once. And so this is the nature of institutions. And so it doesn't allow for much individual thought or creativity or independence. It's just the way the institutions are. And so I just don't like that, because I like to think independently. I like to think creatively, and I like to get to the real root of things. I often joke and say, half jokingly, there's a lot of realism to this, but half jokingly say that I've gotten so much closer to God after I left the church. After I left the religious institution, I was able to just focus on knowing God. And so, just as an example, and so again, the same thing in corporations. It was after I left the corporations that I could really express my creativity, my independence, my ideas, and create my own business and thrive. And I just absolutely love it. I could never go back. Now, I'm not saying this is for everybody. Again, this is just my story. I'm not even saying you have to do this. I'm just saying that be careful of herd mentality. Be careful of just nodding your head and say, yeah, I think that's the truth. I think that's good, just because everybody else is nodding their head and saying it's good. It may not be good at all. It may be good, but it may not even be good for you. And so I think that you just have to think for yourself. You have to think independently. You have to think creatively, and you got to think about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And it can't be just because everybody else is doing it, or you're always told to do it that way. Again, I'm not even saying that is always wrong. I'm just saying if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, then it may be wrong. It may be meaningless. It's not such a moral issue, is it right or wrong? It's more like, does it even have meaning to you? Because, people go to work all the time. They're like, yeah, but I hate my job. It's just something I do, man. Thank God it's Friday, and they just look forward to the weekends, and there's no meaning in their work. People go to church every week, or the synagogue, or the temple, or the mosque, and they go every week. They just go, or multiple times throughout the week. Why do they go? I don't know. I just go. My parents go. My grandparents went, so I just go, and I just go. Is it meaningful to you? I don't know. I guess there's some meaning to it, but do you know God? I don't. I guess I do. I guess I don't know. I don't. There's no meaning, and that's a problem. It's not a matter of so much right or wrong, but it's a matter of, it gets to a point sometimes where there's no meaning, and if there's no meaning, then what are we doing? Same thing with schools. It's just so much time is wasted in public schools, just having kids sit and do things that are actually not very meaningful. And everybody understands this who has gone to school. And I feel the same way. Now, I'm not saying so everybody should just go out of school and do their own thing. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying, think about that. I'm just saying, think about the waste of time in all the things we do, not because we're not being productive. Sometimes it's more wasteful because there's no meaning. That's the key, is that in the things we do, is there meaning? In the things that we do you feel that meaning inside of you as you're doing it? If not, aren't we just going through the motions? And if we are, what are we doing? And so in freeing myself from institutions, and the the example, the main example today was just leaving my corporate job, but like I said, in all the other things as well, as much as possible. It's not because I'm a rebel. It's not because I'm an anarchist or anything like that. It's just that it affords me a better opportunity to find more meaning in what I do, and to be more free in how I think and how I express my thoughts in the work that I do and the life that I live. I guess if I were to summarize it, that's what it is. That's why I left corporate America. And I'll see you in my next video.